if you think that being wealthy depends upon having money, and then you look through your life and say, well, I've never really had much money, therefore I'm not wealthy, then you're setting it up for yourself in a really difficult way. But if you start to realize that being wealthy is actually something intrinsic, it's a quality that does not depend upon anything external. It does not depend upon having money. Being able to sustain having money depends upon being wealthy, but being wealthy does not depend upon having money. So when you start to look for yourself and discover what does it actually mean for you to be wealthy as an intrinsic quality, and then you start to find those examples for yourself of when you have been wealthy in your life, it will create a more stable, solid foundation, and that will make it much easier to begin to establish those habits that will enhance that in your life. Because it's much easier to behave consistent with being wealthy when you already know yourself to be wealthy. Versus if you say, I'm not wealthy, but one day I might be wealthy when I have enough money, then it's much more difficult to establish the habits. Not impossible, but just much more challenging. So what I'm proposing here is that you can you can achieve amazing things when you put into practice what I've just described. And I've given you an enormous amount of information, and I don't necessarily expect that everybody's going to be able to understand all of that straight away, because it's a lot of information. What I've given you, it represents decades of work and learning and experience on my part. But I have given you something really precious that if you actually start to work with that, you'll start to see positive results in your life. So again, just to summarize, in order to have what you want, you need to first establish the identity that will allow you to have that. And that identity depends upon experiences. And specifically, we're talking about habits. So in order to establish habits, you need to start small and grow that. And it needs to be small, simple, and consistent. And you can start today moving forward by establishing those very small, simple things that you can do that are consistent with and congruent with those qualities that you want, that will allow you to have what you want. And you can create a foundation for yourself that will make that even easier if you work from the past forward by establishing that identity for yourself now, where you say, what is this quality that I want? And let me discover how I've always been that quality. Again, this is not about being delusional. It's not saying, well, I've always had $1 million. I was born with a silver spoon in my mouth. I've always been these things. It's not that. It's to recognize that that quality, which is actually intrinsic to you, is something that has always been there for you. And you can discover those experiences, those examples from your life that confirm that that is true when you're willing to do so.